colleagues. Hi, my name is Scott Bryen. I am a long-time activist in Edmonton in Western Canada, a leather educator and a leatherman, and a long-time partner of my past husband, Stan.
And I'm Murray Billett. I've been around Edmonton for a number of decades, and Scotty and I have been friends since the early 1990s. Welcome to this kind of cool interview.
It is kind of cool.
All these years later, when we met, who thought we'd be sitting here doing this?
Or when I was stripping a shirt off you.
That happened too.
Yes, it did.
Scott, for the viewers' sake, I'm really interested to know, as the people that are watching today, how the hell did all this happen? I mean, you started at an early age in Australia. Do you want to kind of tell about those early years?
Sure. I was born in Melbourne, Australia, to a Canadian and Australian parents. They didn't last very long in Australia, and they were moving back to Canada by the time I was about 4 years old. It was an interesting trip. I mean, there was no airplanes at that point. We actually went by boat.
My goodness.
So it was a 2.5-week journey from Sydney through the Panama Canal all the way up to New York City, and then we took the train across to Fort Erie and crossed into Canada.
So that was in the 60s, I'm guessing?
63.
Now, when you got to Canada as a child and a young man, how did those next number of years evolve into, I think, an idea of game?
No, that was a long and involved story. I had a pretty normal childhood. We did move a lot, but I mean, just part and parcel of what our family dynamic was. We ended up in a small town, Ontario, when I started to first question myself. Having an Australian father was not something I was comfortable coming out with him as. He was a trim man's man. He insisted all of us were into sports. He was rough and gruff, and I don't think I ever had a hug from him. Not one. So coming out to him really got pushed off to the point where, trying to live up to their expectations, I got married when I was very young. I was about 21. The marriage lasted for about 3 years. The marriage did not end at my behest. It ended at her behest, actually. Well, not really her behest. I found them in bed with my best friend from university. So things went downhill very quickly from that point. And when I was working for a company in Toronto at the time, and they offered me an opportunity to relocate to Edmonton to one of their branches, and I jumped at it because I was tired of well-meaning friends telling me exactly what she was doing. So I needed to escape that.
What year did you move to Edmonton?
It would have been late 81. Didn't know a person out here, didn't know a single soul, just thought we could start brand new. And because I had that sort of new beginning, I also decided that maybe it was trying to be honest with myself and started to discover myself as a gay man.
In Edmonton? How did that unfold? Because Edmonton in the 80s wasn't the gayest town in the country.
No, it certainly was not. I remember being so desperately lonely on New Year's Day of 1982 because I hadn't seen anybody through the holidays. I had been completely isolated. That I phoned up a cab and I said, "Take me to a gay bar." He took me to Boots and Saddles.
Good old Boots.
It was a grotty little pub with lots of people, and I felt like I'd found family there for the first time. And believe it or not, I'm sitting there by myself. Stan stopped by and said, "Hi, I don't know you. You must be new in town."
Oh my goodness. I didn't know that part of the story. That's so cool.
And he invited me for dinner the next day. It was New Year's Day, so I mean, we had the day off the following. I think it was the weekend. And I went to him, and I have to admit that if I had judged the person I was going to spend the next 40-odd years with, it certainly wouldn't have been by his cooking. Because it was literally the lousiest meal that I've ever had in my life, but I choked it. What happened was we sort of saw Stan got sick for a while, so I was visiting him in the hospital at that point. And I was trying to find my feet on where I fit in Edmonton. We developed a friendship. And the funny thing about Stan was that he was not looking for a relationship. He'd just come out of a really bad one. He got very badly used. And before we sort of knew it, we became each other's best friends and then fell in love with each other. And the next thing I knew, we were moving in together, and the start of our life happened in '82.
And Stanley was previously married and had children.
Yes, he did. So I adopted his children, dragged them up through their lovely teenage years. And the one thing I promised myself is I would never try to be a parent to his children, because I wasn't their parent. So what I turned into was like the older brother that would get them out of shit when they got into it at 3 o'clock in the morning. They never phoned their dad. It was always me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was a lot of that going on in the early days.
And that was kind of our reality. When I was married to a woman and had a couple of kids, and that was a reality for many of us that brought in a whole new dynamic to a gay partnered relationship when you inherit not just another family, but the children of a previous family.
Absolutely, but not just the children, the ancillary relatives that go with that family too. So, I mean, there was a lot of negotiation at the time. I did get along well with his ex-wife, still do, actually.
Wonderful woman, I've met her as well.
You have to see her in a couple of weeks. Yeah, I've been very well accepted into their family simply because I chose not to be the parent.
And Stan get to know each other and understand the realities of each other's and the dynamics of family and community. You guys gotten not just well involved and deeply in love with each other, but you started to build a community around the two of you. Talk a little bit about how that unfolded and perhaps some of the parties that you had here and some of the dynamics of the people that showed up and partied in this very home.
Well, we've only had this home for about 20 years, so there are plenty of other places that we hosted lots of parties. But if I have to say the one thing about Stan and I is we were brutally honest with each other. There was an ability to talk to each other rather than at each other. And I think that's what kept us together for so long. But because we were that type of person, we were also unashamed to be who we were, which meant we didn't hide who we were in professional life, in public life, in personal life. We were the same person all the way along. And you have to remember, back in those days, being an out gay man could result in a number of really unpleasant consequences.
In the 80s, we didn't have equality rights, so the consequences could be draconian.
They were draconian. We knew of several people that were evicted from their lodgings because it was found out that they were gay. They were denied medical treatment at one point or another, or they were forcibly institutionalized and tried to be corrected. So, I mean, it was a dangerous time for us. But what Stan and I felt is that by being open and also showing people that we were nothing more than people that put our pants on one leg at a time and paid mortgages and taxes like everybody else, no one would ever get past the point of this one little thing that we shared in private. I think it helped a lot. I think it's helped a lot over my life because it has turned people who would normally automatically condemn us into thinking maybe there was something else to the story.
How did that evolve in terms of the role models that you two became in the community, leading by example as partners, as community leaders, and then subsequently you guys turned into activists in your own way? How did that transition move to being the gay couple, the cool gay couple, and then all of a sudden you start to get more involved? Tell us more about that, Scott.
Again, it sort of goes back to our personalities. Both of us were don't talk about something, do something about it. If it bothers you, get off your ass and actually move. So back at that time, AIDS was just starting to poke its nasty little head out. And being in a remote northern city, we didn't expect to be too affected by it, but what ended up starting to happen was friends of ours were getting ill, or friends of ours were coming back to town to die. And back in those days, you had to remember that a diagnosis of HIV was a death sentence. Nobody questioned it. Even the people who got the diagnosis did not question it. They knew they were going to die, and they were going to die soon. Sometimes it took a week, sometimes it took a couple of years, but it always happened.
I think you and I were both involved with the HIV/AIDS network, as it was then called.
Yes.
It's now HIV Edmonton, and the harsh realities were upon all of us. It was a difficult time to navigate as partners and as a community. How did you move through that component?
We got involved.
Nice.
We did a lot of work with the AIDS Network, as it was called back then. I can't remember the number of bar nights that I was out handing out.
Gay Men's Outreach Crew.
Yeah. Used to dress up in nice ass back then too, so it worked. It worked. We got involved with it there. We got involved with hospice care with people that we knew. We certainly were in and out of hospitals for the next 10 years, really. I think our worst year was 1989. I remember it so well because on December 31st, 1989, I sat down and I counted the number of memorial services that we had been to. And we only went to the ones for people that we knew, and realized that we'd been to 79 memorial services that year, 2 or 3 a week.
Remarkably difficult time.
Well,
Did you realize as you were getting involved that you were becoming a bit of an activist in your own way? Both of you.
We realized that we were doers rather than sit back and complainers.
Right.
So yes, we did get involved in things, and I spent some time, for instance, with the Sexual Minorities Liaison Committee with the police. That changed a lot of the attitudes that the police had towards our community that were commonly held. And it was a matter of, again, letting them see us as people
Do you recall how that liaison committee started?
Vaguely, but I don't have the details at hand.
I was involved. A quick story. That liaison committee started as a result of a sting operation in Victoria Park, where it was called the Fruit Loop, and men would meet men, and the cops went down there and raided the park, and subsequent to that, people were arrested, not unlike at the bathhouse, but they published the names of the people where if you were a straight person picking up a prostitute, they wouldn't put the name in the paper because it would impact your family.
Yeah.
And so they published the names of the people that were discovered in the park, and that upset a bunch of us.
Oh, I remember that.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
That's how the community started the liaison, because we said to the cops, you can't be doing crap like that.
We used to watch from our apartment. We had an apartment at one point in the Valhalla, which overlooks that whole
Down the street from my house.
Yes, it is. And we used to watch on a regular basis 4 or 5 police cars pull up at either end of it, and they would let dogs out and just let them run and let people run out screaming. It was like watching something from 1930s Nazi Germany. It really was. It was pretty awful.
The interesting part to me was you guys were doing activist work and didn't realize, I don't think initially, that you were even being activists. You were just getting stuff done. What other activists were out there that were around that you saw, that you said that we have to bring our voice to?
Well, I mean, the number one from Edmonton comes up is Michael Fair.
Of course.
I mean,
He started the AIDS Network.
Yeah, he started the AIDS Network. He was not shy about standing up and speaking on behalf of our community. And I realized quite early on that you cannot have a movement without people behind you. So I spent a lot of time talking to Stan about what we could bring to help them with their simultaneously at this point. I had just been introduced into the leather community, which was also in the late 80s too.
We're going to get going on that one in a little bit.
A lot of things were happening sort of all simultaneously.
It was actually a pretty exciting time, as well as it was a crazy time. It was a pretty interesting time in terms of our own evolution.
It was active. There was always something going on. You also have to remember, at this point, bars became central to the social activism for this city. It became central for practically every city that I visited, but specifically for Edmonton, because we could not meet really in public and talk at this point without risking. We would meet at the bars. So at the bars became the planning events for the Pride Committee, and the planning events for the next fundraiser, and the planning events for the Delwyn Rand case, and the planning, all of the planning happened in the bar. Well, people were about 3 sheets to the wind. Well, it certainly did. You got a lot more agreement faster. Well, sure, I could do that.
Scott, being involved all those years ago, what kinds of improvements have you seen over the years from when you and Stan were going to Boots and Saddle to have those meetings? Talk a little bit about the advancements that we've seen in the ensuing decades.
It's sort of hard to put into words. Stan was not the healthiest man, you know that.
Yes.
And was sort of in and out of the hospital. And one of my biggest problems with that was I could not get access to Stan if he was in the hospital because I was not considered family. So what was happening at one point when my husband had contracted meningitis, I was phoning his children in Vancouver to have them phone the doctors in Edmonton and then turn around and phone me in Edmonton to tell me what was going on because the doctors would not release anything to me. That doesn't happen anymore.
So a lot of big changes for our
very big
The
changes.
Delwyn Brain case was
Delwyn
instrumental.
Brand case was very instrumental. I remember working very hard on raising funds for that. I mean, it was something that the whole community did.
And for our listeners' sake, 1998 is when the Supreme Court ruled in the Delwyn Brain case that we have equality rights, and sexual orientation was read into our equality legislation only in 1998. So that's the case that we're referring to here.
Yeah.
Subsequently, you were starting to get involved in the leather community.
Yeah, I did get
Which is
involved
a
in
big
the leather
journey.
community, and I don't know. I think it was more an expression of myself than it was a big
Nice.
journey. Yeah, I had some very good friends in town, and I knew that they were leather.
What drew you to that leather community?
I
To
got
the culture.
I got invited. I got a chance to see it, and it was another one of those. You remember how I described when I walked into Boots the first time and I felt like I had found my family?
Yeah.
Exactly the same feeling. And most Leathermen will talk to you about this because there is a second coming out for Leathermen when they finally admit that this is where they actually belong in the whole mix of what we have.
What are some of the misconceptions? Because so many people look at Leatherman and they're afraid, or they don't get it, or what's all that about? What are the misconceptions that a lot of people have
The
about that
misconceptions,
enormous community?
the misconceptions are the same as the misconceptions they have about everybody else. People are judged by their exterior appearances.
Yeah.
So if a Leatherman walks deck full to toe in 3 hides worth of leather, people automatically look at him like he's going to start stabbing their 2-year-old. And
What's 3 hides worth of leather?
3 hides worth of leather, that's 3 cows. Whole
So
cows.
full gear.
Full gear, head to toe,
Exactly.
usually in multiple layers.
Yeah.
And people will automatically step back and make judgments on your appearance from that. When in fact, what I found with the leather community was a group of people that were so authentic that it made my heart hurt.
Nice.
They were exactly who they said they were. They walked the walk, they talked the talk. Didn't mean that there wasn't friction from time to time, but people came together more more with an idea of conciliation than with anything else. It's like we got to get along because there's all these enemies out in front of us.
You have a brilliant family and a big community that get each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly there. Any other things that you could touch on?
Probably the fact that that family is not limited to just this community here. It is worldwide.
Tell me more about that. How big is it? Because it's bigger than most people understand.
There literally is Leathermen in pretty much every country in the world, certainly every first world country. What you find is that these people have an idea in their head that their life is nothing more than experiences, and they wish to live a full life, so they want the best experiences.
Nice.
And it's a matter of convincing yourself that an obstruction in your way is nothing more than just a temporary bump in the road. And you can navigate it around it the way that you choose to do it. But that is the real point of leather, is that it is your choice, your journey, your particular way of running through your life.
You did extremely well in the leather community. You won a number of titles, not just doing the education work in the leather community. Tell us a little bit. Tell us your story. Tell us some of the big leather titles that you took.
Well,
Because you were really cool, very successful in that.
well, thank you for that, Murray. I never thought it was sort of cool. Every time I took a title, to me it was another job I laid on myself. because the titles were really nothing more than you being given a small platform for a limited amount of time to speak, and that you were a recognized person, and you became an ambassador from the leather community to the larger community at large.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time trying to build bridges from our community to other communities and have it reciprocate back and forth. And we were really successful with the court for years and years and years.
Raised a lot of money.
Raised a lot of money with the court. We fought with the court. We celebrated with the court. I mean,
Did it all.
we did it all. But I mean, if you take a look at the whole rainbow fruit salad conglomeration we have now, back then, the two most identifiable groups in our community were the Leathermen and the drag queens, because people could just look and see them.
In those years, what's some of the stuff that you're most proud of, Scott?
I guess competing at International Mr. Leather was a highlight. Not specifically because I did particularly well at the competition, and too little of a filter to actually do well for those political games, but the networks that I built out of those experiences, and then coming back to my community, and I remember this quite distinctly because you threw a bit of a welcome home thing for me when I came back from Chicago. And I decided that, seeing as I didn't give a chance to give my speech at the contest, I would give it to everybody there. And our speeches had to be tight, concise, right down. I think we had 90 seconds to give a speech and come across with a good concept. So I gave this speech, and I remember there was probably 300 or 400 people in the room, because it was upstairs at the Roost. And everybody leaped to their feet and just applauded for a good 10 minutes. And I don't think I'd ever felt so humble in my life.
Beautiful moment.
It was one of those moments that really sort of captured what the Edmonton community was to me.
Quick little side note, Scott invited me to be a judge at one of the leather contests, and I, not being a leather guy, I didn't have a lot of leather, but needless to say, Scott had a fair amount of leather. So I thought I looked quite fetching with my little leather this and leather that, and Scott and I are on stage co-hosting the thing, and if you remember, Scott, you said to everybody, well, doesn't Murray look good, but couldn't he look better? And then he took off my shirt, took off my leather vest, and put on a harness, to which I said, well, the last time I had a harness like this on was back in Moose Jaw on the farm.
Yes, which everybody laughed at, but you looked a hell of a lot better.
Being a leatherman, did that turn you into an activist, or did an activist turn you into a leatherman?
I think they handled it simultaneously. I really do. And again, I'll go back to it. Stan and I were always doers. We were not sit back and watch things go. And if we felt we had talent to actually help or support something that we believed in, we offered those right away. Mm-hmm. That's how I got involved in education with the leather community, and I've taught right across the North American continent. As a matter of fact, outside of the continent, I went to Ireland once. The Twisted Leprechaun. How's that? Twisted name.
So what a journey as a leatherman, as a leather educator, as a leather leader, and as an activist. It was just, what a remarkable period of time that you did that.
It was active. I will tell you that it did get a little tiring towards the end. Because in my life, I've had 4 titles. The first one was Mr. Alberta Drummer back in '94. Then in 2004, I took the Mr. Edmonton contest, and then went to Chicago to compete at IML.
which means IML.
Is International Mr. Leather. And then after that, I was talking to running for the International Leather Sir Boy contest.
Nice.
A few, and that's the one where you probably remember my boy Rene.
Yes,
who
of
is
course.
the current IML.
Flourishing as such.
Flourish.
Scott, there's so many stories, and we're going to ask our viewers to stay tuned because we've got a second portion coming up where we're going to talk more about the life of you and Stan and some of the cool history that you guys made together.
That sounds perfect.
Let's do that.
Okay.